How to overcome imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is characterized by an inability to believe that one's success is deserved, despite the effort and energy put into achieving the outcome. The syndrome is linked to low self-confidence, self-doubt, and feelings of intellectual fraud, and increased levels of stress and anxiety. While it can be hard to uproot the mindset that contributes to imposter syndrome, you can take some actions to help you overcome it. Positive self-talk. Self-talk can be described as the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. It is the thoughts and phrases we think or say that reinforce positive or negative things about us. Positive self-talk is that which demonstrates self-compassion and understanding for who we are and what we have experienced. Thus, we can make our internal narrative a positive one that encourages us, uplifts us, and reinforces our intellect and abilities. For some, this comes naturally, but for most people, we must build this skill intentionally with practice and effort. Using positive affirmations to change the internal dialogue from one that is negative and discouraging to one that is uplifting and encouraging can help uproot the thinking that contributes to imposter syndrome. Growth mindset. A growth mindset believes that we can grow in our capabilities, intelligence, and talents over time. A growth mindset works against imposter syndrome because even if there is a belief that one is not enough in a particular moment, a growth mindset speaks to the idea that one can increase and become enough at any given time. Thus, one is not stuck to their present level of knowledge or skill but can increase in knowledge and skill with effort. This mindset can lead to enhanced confidence and success levels because individuals with this mindset are geared more towards self-improvement. People with a growth mindset are more resilient when faced with challenges and failures. Rather than proof of their incompetency, these failures become viewed as opportunities for growth. Stop comparison. Comparing yourself to others can cause imposter syndrome to grow in its severity. When we look around and see other people's success, it can wrongfully reinforce the idea that other people have worked hard for and are worthy of their success, while we are not. Using other people as a measuring board for our success, accomplishments, or intellect is not healthy. It can increase self-doubt and low self-esteem that allows imposter syndrome to fester. How imposter syndrome is holding you back. Imposter syndrome is the faulty belief that one is a fraud and not deserving of their achievements. This is often despite plenty of evidence to the contrary. Research published in the Journal of Behavioral Science suggests that nearly 70% of the US population has experienced imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. Imposter syndrome can be debilitating to one's personal and professional life. It also affects one's mental and physical health and even their relationships in a variety of ways. Personal and professional life. Imposter syndrome often leaves people feeling as if perfectionism is the only option and asking for help is out of the question. This perfectionism results in two primary responses. 1. An imposter will procrastinate out of the fear that they cannot meet the often unreasonable high standards they've set for themselves. 2. The imposter will over-prepare and spend an extraordinary amount of time on the task in an obsessive manner as a means of trying to get it to perfection. This behavior can contribute to massive amounts of stress. The person dealing with imposter syndrome tries to meet unrealistic standards of excellence or constantly lives in fear of their inability to perform well. Often, good outcomes in response to either of these responses work to reinforce the behavior further and lead to toxic cycles. Burnout is often more common because people get trapped in the cycle of overworking or overproducing to meet high standards and prove themselves worthy. Additionally, people struggling with imposter syndrome can also miss out on opportunities as their fear of failure will keep them from taking risks or chances that could lead to a positive outcome. They'd much rather not try and avoid failure than try and fail, even if the likelihood of failure is not that large. Mental and physical health. Imposter syndrome can create massive amounts of psychological distress, enhanced self-monitoring, increased self-doubt and continual fear of failure. Levels of stress that are continually high over time can lead to anxiety disorders, increased risk for depression, obsessive-compulsive disorders, and other mental health issues. Not only that, the increased levels of cortisol present in the body when high levels of stress are experienced can lead to a host of physical health issues. This includes but is not limited to gastrointestinal issues, migraines, headaches, heart issues, raised blood pressure, and chronic pain conditions. Relationships. Relationships with family members can also suffer as a result of imposter syndrome. When large amounts of time and effort are put into accomplishing tasks, it can put a strain on relationships because family members might. Imposter syndrome can negatively impact relationships when a family member prioritizes career success over time with families or children. Partners and families can suffer when someone spends too much time trying to prove themselves in a professional capacity to the detriment of their personal lives. 3 tactics to deal with imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is a belief that success that has been earned is not deserved nor worthy of praise and attention. Many people with imposter syndrome find themselves crippled by the fear that others will discover they aren't as knowledgeable or skilled as they seem to be. Thus, they work hard to prevent this from happening or avoid scenarios where they feel exposed. At the same time, there are various ways to begin to deal with imposter syndrome. The rest of this article outlines 3 of those strategies. The perfect starting point. Track and measure success. Often, people with imposter syndrome do not attribute their successes to their efforts. This feeds the belief that they are not deserving of their accomplishments. However, when we track and measure our success, it can be challenging to overlook it. Being intentional about capturing our efforts and the successes they lead to can directly combat ideas about our lack of ability or intellect by proving on paper how our efforts have led to a positive outcome. If we can visibly see that we are responsible for achieving good things, it can boost confidence and throw a dent in imposter syndrome. Growth mindset. A growth mindset is an idea that we are not fixed to our current capabilities or knowledge. Rather, it is the belief that over time we can grow and increase our knowledge and abilities with some effort and energy. A growth mindset helps us better cope with scenarios where we are critiqued, challenged, or face failure. When we understand that these instances are simply growth opportunities, we'll be less likely to internalize them as proof of failure or inadequacy. Thus, we become more resilient and can actively seek out additional opportunities for learning and growth. Replace negative thinking. This practice requires actively noting those thoughts we have about ourselves that are discouraging and negative and addressing them at the moment. This works to interrupt negative thought patterns that reinforce negative imposter syndrome. By shutting down negative thoughts, we keep them from taking root and redirect them towards thoughts that uplift us, encourage us, and highlight our capabilities and potential. This essentially keeps the thoughts that serve as the foundation of imposter syndrome from developing, giving little to no room for the syndrome to thrive.